Thanks, guys. It's nice to be back for the third time. I don't know how many speakers can say that. So just to introduce myself, Mackenzie gave me an introduction, but my name is Melanie. I went to the University of Pittsburgh, graduated in December of 2011, got a job at Undertone in New York City. That process I'll explain to you guys in a bit. And then I've currently been working at Twitter for the last 8 months, so that's been my newest move. So today I think I'm going to go over a few things. So one, the book is something I'm going to talk to you guys about, and I'm going to lead into that towards the end of the presentation. But I think the biggest thing is sharing my experience with you guys of how my transition from college to getting a job, and what really, the pain point that led me to write a book in the first place. So to give you guys some background, I graduated in 2011 in Pittsburgh. It was freezing and I didn't have a job. And so I was like, all right, what else do I have to do besides move back to Hawaii, where I'm from? So I moved back, had no idea what I wanted to do, but my life looked like this. So as a college graduate, I had pictured myself on top of the world. My parents thought everyone would want me. My friends and I thought we'd be strutting around New York City. There I was, 1 p.m. in my office, as I would say. Oh no, I don't know why this thing keeps coming up. I don't want this. Okay, well that might happen a lot. So I'm in my office for a good month, on my couch, applying for jobs, and I'll say it was very frustrating. So I was a finance marketing major in Pittsburgh. I played Division I volleyball, started my own company. I had 3 solid internships, and I was feeling pretty good about that, graduating. Everyone wants the dream of like starting their own company after college, but unfortunately we all don't get that opportunity and we have to work for people. So in that case, hopefully this can be helpful to you guys. So I'm sitting on my couch and I'm applying for all these jobs, and for a straight month I didn't get one response. So I was probably applying for 1,000 jobs a day. I was just shooting my resume out there. Shooting my resume out there to as many jobs as I could possibly find, and wasn't hearing anything back. And so I got to a point, a deep, dark point in my life, where I just didn't think I was good enough. So I kind of had to gather myself and was like, okay, maybe I'm just good enough for an unpaid internship at this point, or I don't know, maybe I'm just going to live in my mom's house or my parents' house the rest of my life and be that person, which, don't trust me, it's not the way to go. So a turning point happened for me. I was seeking more information. So I think when I talk about my book, that was kind of what I was seeking. I was seeking something to help me, like, how do I get in front of people? No one's responding to me. Like, what do I need to do? So I caught this webinar on LinkedIn, and it kind of switched my thought process around. I wasn't thinking, it made me think not about how many jobs I was going to apply for and like just pushing my resume out there, but focused me more on who am I like targeting? Where do I want to work? How am I going to contact these people? And really focusing on connecting. And I forgot the details, but all I know is I felt super inspired after this webinar, and I was like, okay, I need to switch things up. So I switched it up. This is what happened. So I used LinkedIn as a tool. So LinkedIn can be thought of as a lot of different things. I mean, at some aspects of it, I'm not a huge fan of. I'm a huge fan of LinkedIn as a tool to get in touch with people. Everyone in business is on LinkedIn, whether they want to be or not, and it's a really awesome way to get in touch with people and get in front of them. So I started connecting, and by that I mean not just shooting out all these invites and connecting with people. I started really focusing my search. So I was like, okay, here are the companies I want to work for. I'm going to start emailing people and messaging people on LinkedIn and connecting with people, but messaging in a way that I'm not asking for anything. I just want to talk to them about them and compliment them and ask them a few questions. So I don't know, I mean, now looking back on it, right, and now I'm at Twitter and I get 1 million emails a day, and I don't answer any of them unless it's like work-related, outside of work-related stuff, like on LinkedIn. I don't answer emails unless they're personalized, they're short to the point, and they're not asking for anything. And that's like getting a little specific. I'm sorry, like I can be kind of an asshole, but like I'm not gonna just throw your resume around if I don't know you, right? So I started thinking in the position of no one's gonna do anything for me. I need to go out there and start making these connections. So this was my winning connection, so to speak. Just so happened I found this company, Undertone. I'm sitting in Hawaii and I'm like, best places to work in New York City, and like Undertone pops up. I'm like, okay, how do I get there? So I started messaging people. I don't even know if this was like the best message I could have done, but anyways, it got in the hands of our CEO's assistant, and she was like, the next day I get an email, and she's like, Melanie, you should have I checked out your LinkedIn, you should have an interview tomorrow. Had an interview, 2 interviews later I got the job, and I was flying to New York City, working full time. So my friends were shocked, and not in the sense of like, Melanie's never gonna get a full-time job, but when I told them what I was doing. So I was like, my friends were in the same boat, no one could find jobs, everyone was struggling, some of them still are, it's been like 5 years. But they were shocked when I was telling them what I was doing, like, I'm messaging all these people, I'm going out there, I'm getting in front of them, I don't give a shit what people think about me, and they're like, oh, that sounds terrible. I was like, okay, well, too bad that's the only way to get a job now. To be honest, it's like you need to connect with people that work at the company. And I mean, just looking at Twitter, for example, we hire 80% referrals, and I know every single job that goes up gets passed around internally before we even look at the outside. So if you're someone, there we go, don't mind that. If you're someone that is looking for a job, like if you're applying online, you're not even seen before like 100 candidates get seen inside. And I didn't know that graduating. So I was like applying to 1,000 companies and didn't know that no one ever saw my resume. So that was the birth of Bold. So I had 2 co-authors. And I wrote this book because I was like, in college, I did not learn how to apply for a job. I learned cool skills about marketing, cool skills about finance, what I could possibly do on the job, but no one taught me how to get a job. We had career services, but if you've ever been to a career fair, it's a complete shit show and like nothing good comes out of it. And it was very overwhelming. So I was like, I need this. I need a book that gives me something to lean on when I was in this situation. I wanted to know skills and how to get a job. So I had this idea and I was like, I'm pretty entrepreneurial, but I always needed like someone to code an app, and that was really frustrating because I had no tech skills. So I was like, we should write a book, and these were like my 2 friends that I did a lot of projects with. So Josh and Liz. Liz went to Carnegie Mellon, Josh went to the University of Pittsburgh, and both of them had cool stories of getting a job. Like Liz tweeted at her co-founder, she works for like one of the top startups in Philly right now, and Josh connected through his alumni group on LinkedIn to get a job at GSK out of college. So we all kind of had this little struggle and found a creative way to get a job. So they're like, okay, cool, let's do this. So we did this. So the book itself was pretty interesting, and it was one of the coolest experiences because I had this excuse to talk to like every person I wanted to talk to and get to know that I probably couldn't have without writing a book. I was like, hey, I'm writing a book and I'd like to feature you. And they're like, oh, whoa, yeah, sure, you know, like you're writing a book. So I was able to interview a ton of really cool people. And I'll give you guys my website later, but there's all the interviews up there you can check out. And my goal was to find across the world the coolest stories possible of how people landed jobs. So what are people doing? How are they getting their resume in front of the right people? Like, I want to put these techniques together and share them with the world so everyone can be inspired and feel like confident when they're getting out there and not to be afraid when they are reaching out to people. So I found some really cool stories. A couple of them here. So Eliza, you can't really see well, but Eliza, this girl, there's this application called Prezi, and it's for it's like presentations, and she created this really cool presentation. It looked like a Facebook page and sent it around, and I think in like 2 minutes she tracked how many people saw it, like she could track it, and like 27 people, like they passed around the entire company, so she got an interview in like less than 5 minutes. We have, oh god, there's so many cool stories. Let's see, I'm like forgetting all of them right now. Yeah, we're just gonna like keep going here. We'll go back to that later. Okay, So one cool one that I'll share with you guys was, who knows who this is? Oh God, come on guys, Neil Everett, ESPN. Is he an announcer? Don't we play, some people play sports here, right? No? Okay. Anyways, I played a sport in college and I did business, so the only job I thought I wanted was ESPN. And like that's the only job I'll ever want, it's like my dream job. Meanwhile, why? I have no idea. It probably was not my dream job. But I applied like 1,000 times on the website. No one ever got back to me. Finally, I did this technique stuff, and I got in front of a marketing manager, and he got on the phone with me, and he's like, Melanie, like, we don't look at resumes submitted on the outside. And I was like, wow, it's been a month of me applying, so thank you for telling me that. And he's like, I'm not going to submit your resume, but find someone that will, because he, like, didn't know me. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. So I got off the call with him, and I was like, who can I get to submit my resume? Who would get me a job at ESPN? Probably a sportscaster, right? Like, if anyone's going to submit my resume, if a sportscaster submits my resume, I'm probably going to get the job. So I was like, okay, Neil Everett. This guy worked in Hawaii. I'm from Hawaii. There's that connection. I'm going to give it a shot. So he didn't have an email address out there. And sometimes you guys got to be creative. And I think LinkedIn helps with that because once you connect with someone, you connect with your second connections with everyone, you can start messaging things. And you realize that everyone has a very common email address at a company. So it's like n.neil at ESPN. I mean, there's like 5 variations of what could possibly be his email address. So I like put everyone together. I had like 10 email addresses, put this heartfelt note together, attached my resume, and like sent it off. Meanwhile, a month goes by. I get a job at Undertone, the company that I worked at. Never thought about it. And one day I have a missed call on my cell phone, and it was like 3 days before I'm moving to New York City. And I'm like, oh, that's weird. I didn't even hear it ring. And I'm listening to the voicemail, and it's, hello, this is Neil Everett's voice calling you. How did you get my email address? This guy is like completely private, like does not have Twitter. People at Oregon basketball games hold up signs saying, Neil, get on Twitter, because he does not do anything out in the open. So I was like, oh, so I call him back. He was like, who are you? How do I know you? And I was like, oh, you don't, but so anyways, long story short, I'm not going to bore you guys with the details, but the next day I had an interview at ESPN. And it was that easy. It's like, all I had to do was connect with the right person. And I like this story because, for one, it shows you that, one, people are going to answer your emails. People get back to you if you add a personal touch. Not everyone had like 7,000 rejections, but there are people that are willing to speak to you. And and it's a lot of higher up people that are willing to, if you really personalize these emails and personalize and it's not just emails, it's wherever you can find a way to get in touch with someone, they're willing to talk because they can appreciate the hustle. So that was one thing. So I had an interview, was like, nah, that was fun, but I have a job already. So I ended up taking the job. And then I'm writing this book, and I'm probably like 6 months on the job, been writing the book, and my dad emails me a link, and he goes, you really got to check out this link. I look at the link, and it's Neil Everett talking in a huge group of people, with a huge group of people, about how he landed his job at ESPN. And I was blown away. I'm like, oh my God, I cannot believe this guy's story. He was holding a Shoes by Michael sign. I think he worked at Sizzler at some point, but he was holding a Shoes by Michael sign at a crosswalk for like 5 years before he did anything. I'm like, if that is where you start, you can achieve anything in this world, right? Like, talk about a success story. And I listened to his story and I'm like, oh my God, he needs to be in my book. Like, how am I going to it took him a month to reply to me, like, how am I going to get this guy featured in my book? Because it's not like my typical stories that I had. Most of my stories were like people getting entry-level jobs and stuff, but to bring this in would be awesome because I felt so inspired after watching it. So I emailed him right away. I'm like, Neil, like, hi, this is Melanie. Like, we spoke a month ago, or we spoke 6 months ago, blah, blah, blah. No answer. Like, of course not. I email him every day for like a month and a half. And I'm just like, hey Neil, hope all's good. Saw you on TV yesterday, blah, blah, blah. Like, literally, I'm sitting in a coffee shop on a Thursday, and I get an email. Melanie, call me in the next 5 minutes. I'm driving to work. Oh my God, this is amazing. So I get on the phone, I call him, he's like, how do I know you again? I was like, oh yeah, like had to tell him the whole story, and he's like, okay. So at the time, I was doing interviews via Google Hangout, and I was capturing them for my website, and then I was working with our team to like document them into the book. But my goal was like, I want him on a Google Hangout because that like, I need to get his video on there and be like, this book, and put him on there, you know, everyone needs to see the story. So I'm like, Neil, like I'm writing this book, like you were a huge inspiration, like I really want you in it. And he's like, okay, and I'm like, okay, so Google Hangout, like, you want to do it? And he's like, Melanie, like, I don't do that, I don't do bungee jumping, like, no. Like, he's like, I like this is cool, but not doing videos. Like, I have no videos. In fact, the video you saw me on YouTube, I'm calling them as soon as we're done with this call, and I'm getting it deleted. I was like, okay. So he's like, call me this time next week, this exact moment, and I will do it on my way to work. Like, you ask me the questions, and I'll tell you the answer, and you write them down. Is it okay, bye? I'm like, oh, okay, like, yay, but like, no, like, I want a video, you know? Like, this isn't gonna be good. Like, me trying to like write down everything, that's never gonna happen. So I call him back, like, randomly, like 2 seconds later, and I'm like, Neil, so I was in New York, I'm like, Neil, I'll be in LA tomorrow, like, where can I meet you? And he's like, who the hell are you? You're so scared of me. Like, no. And I'm like, Neil, like, I just need to do this in person. Like, I need a voice recorder. I'm not going to do video. Like, I'm never going to capture your story. Like, this is going to make my book, and I need it. And he's like, Melanie, like, I cannot believe you. Meet me at my studio tomorrow. We're doing this interview. And there we have it, people. Me and Neil. So it was amazing. He actually did a video interview. It's on my website. And the biggest thing here was, so if there's a will, there's a way. And this was my takeaway. And this is really important because he really broke it down for me. And if you guys watch the video, you'll see exactly what I mean by this. But people talk about luck. And they're like, oh, you're so lucky you do this. You're so lucky you do that. And to me, I don't believe in luck. I believe luck equals passion, skill, and a lot of hard work. Because when he told me, he's like, listen, like, you need to find, first and foremost, you need to find something you're passionate about. Because you're not going to succeed unless you're doing something that you're passionate about. And I'm not saying that, like, your first job out of college is going to be, like, this die-hard passion of yours, because trust me, that was not me. But you have to understand what you're passionate about. So discovering what makes you happy, discovering what makes you wake up in the morning. Because there's a lot of things that, personally speaking, I'm bad at 99.9% of the things I do, and so I really gotta find that 0.5%. Because if I'm not there, I'm not doing good, and I'm really bad at it. Like, math and stuff, that does not come easy to me, so I have to stay as far away from it as possible. So the takeaway on that is finding what you're passionate about, and then you have to have skill there. If there's no skill, so you can be passionate, you can work really hard, but if you have no skill, I'm sorry, like, you're only going to get to a certain level. And that's just the reality of it. You can still do it, but if you want to be super successful, and I'm talking about how, like, Neil Everett's now, like, one of the top ESPN announcers of all time, he was very passionate about it. He had God-given skill, and you don't need a lot of it, you just need a little of it. And you work very hard. And if you can combine those things, that is your best shot. And sometimes it takes a while. So, for example, for me, it's like my first job out of college, advertising, that's not my passion. Like, I'm sorry, I don't want to put ads on your screens, but that's what I'm doing, and like, it's not my dream, right? But on the side, I was writing this book because this is what I was passionate about. And I was like, I could do this all night, and I could continue, it's fun for me, so I'm going to do it. So sometimes, if you can't jump into this job right out of college, find a way to do it on the side, and like, maybe you don't go drinking with your friends one night and you're like in a coffee shop grinding away at something that you enjoy doing. Because eventually that can overtake what you're doing on your day job and become, you know, your full-time job. So that was my biggest takeaway, and it really resonated because it sometimes it's hard, like, to find what you're passionate about. It really takes some, like, hard work to figure that out. Cool, so we wrote the book. This is a little outdated, but got picked up in a bunch of news outlets and sold a bunch of copies. We did a bunch, just to give you like the 411 on what happened. I've probably spoken at like 25 to 30 colleges at this point. I really enjoy. So I wrote a course as well. So if you guys, I'll tell you guys after, but if you shoot me, I'm going to say now if you tweet at me, because I'm trying to build my Twitter up. So if you guys tweet at me, I'll send you the course. I have a few kids in this class working on the course right now. But really breaking down kind of what I'm talking about today in terms of like very start to finish on how you should be applying for jobs. I did that along with the book. So those are kind of the things I did. It's been a while, so it's been like a couple of years, and I just do this for fun now. Talking and helping people, I really enjoy it. So just to break down a little bit, I want to give you guys a little takeaway before I finish up here. Okay, I need to get rid of these 3 slides, but why is it so difficult to land a job out of college? And then, okay, there's a lot of things happening. And this right here, it's like, just so you know, like when you're applying for a job out of college, you're competing against your graduating class, the graduating class before you, because those people are still on their parents' couch, and you're competing against people that have been laid off. There's a lot of layoffs nowadays. I mean, it's getting better, but I know when I was in college, like people in my same entry level were like 5 years older than me, because that's the reality. Like it's tough and it's very competitive, which is why you need to, what can you do? Stand out, okay? You need to stand out, and it's very important. I have 4 steps to that, and this is what I kind of brand as my 4 steps to success. So first is brand you. So brand new, when you Google yourself, when you go on LinkedIn, what are you seeing? If it's not what you want to see, don't even apply to a job. Because if you're going to take all this hard work to apply to a job, and then they see your crappy LinkedIn page, like why? Why are you doing it? Why are you putting all this work in for something that doesn't even represent yourself? So I always tell everyone, before you even look at that, get your LinkedIn straight, get your resume straight, and the one cool story here, and this is someone that was in my book, Robbie Williams, really wanted to work for this company, applied a million times, and finally he's like, okay, I'm going to take this job description and make it my LinkedIn profile. Literally every single word was like, every other word in the job description was his LinkedIn profile. All of a sudden, he applied like 7 times to this job. All of a sudden, the next day, he gets an email. Hi Robbie, this is the recruiter for the job. We came across your resume and we think you'd be a great candidate for this position. And he's like, that's funny, I've applied 7 times and no one answered one of my emails. But this is true, guys. So one of the takeaways here is as you're narrowing your search down to find a job, those keywords in that job description are what people are looking for, recruiters are looking for when they're searching through to find candidates. So if you're set on a job, especially if like, I know like sometimes you're like, this isn't the only job I'm applying for, but if you generally have an idea of like the type of job you're applying for, really try to move those keywords into your LinkedIn. Weave them in there, because that's going to help you being identified as a good candidate through their SEO process. Yeah, so I think brand new is make sure you're representing yourself before you even get out there and start applying for jobs. Alright, 2 is plan of attack. So this can get very overwhelming. You might think it's like, oh, you're fine in the beginning, and then a month goes by and you're so overwhelmed. You have like 100 jobs, random people contacting you. So really take your time and organize yourself. For me personally, I had a manila folder for every single company I was applying for. And I'm not applying for like 100 at this point. It's like 6 to 10, you know? Like you're focusing your time on 6 to 10 companies that you've seeked out, and you're organized. And in that manila folder, you're going to have the people that work there, like printing out things on the people and articles. You always want to be in the know of like the latest articles that were released for the company. So a new product, the latest like, you know, tech push, whatever it is, because when you get those 5 minutes on the phone with someone, you want to sound like you know your stuff. And the best way to do that is to be up to date with the latest. And that's always on their blog, so you can go ahead and just like print out some stuff, take notes. So because what happens is you start applying for jobs and you'll get a random email. It's like, hi Melanie, like, can we get on a call tomorrow? And you want to like be prepared, have your stuff together, or they'll just call you. And that's when you're like, like who are you? Like, no, I don't know what job this was for. So be ready. And I think there's, I'm not going to go into this detail now, but within my course, there's a lot of different things that can really help you prepare yourself for these like interviews and stuff as you're applying for these companies, and like the types of information you should know. And I say finding the right balance. Don't apply for too many at one time. Like, keep your search thin. Okay, creativity. So this is like the third aspect. Be creative, and be creative in a way that like you feel comfortable. Some people I've interviewed did these like massive Lego things and sent it to the company. Like, that's not me, but that's them, and that's great. I'm also not going to code some web page to be like, cool, I need to do a web page. But I might send a cookie that says, trying to get my foot in the door in the shape of a cookie to a company. That happened. They ate the cookie and said, sorry, the cookie was good, but you don't get the job. Anyways, be creative. And don't be afraid to like put yourself out there, because when I think back about myself, I've probably been rejected 1,000 times. So many people have said things probably about me like, oh, this girl's so annoying. But I work at Twitter now, and I wrote a book, and like, who cares, right? Like, no one's looking, no one's saying that to me now, and no one said that to any of the people that I interviewed that are successful, and they all did these crazy, wacky things too. So, don't be afraid. People can appreciate persistence and hustle. Like, when I see someone that emails me now, and they've done some research, and they're asking for something from me, like, I appreciate that. I'm like, yeah, like, let me help you out. And sometimes they have to email me like 6 times, and that's not annoying. That's just reminding me to get back to them. And I promise that's how a lot of people think. And lastly is approaching people. So where are the people that you need to get in touch with? For me, a lot of them are on LinkedIn. For you, they might be in other places. So maybe like a bar on a Saturday night. You know they go there. Like, get over there and be there. Or anywhere. You know, there's so many avenues to connect, but get in front of people. Don't get behind the screen and just, you know, apply. You need to be in front of people in order to get jobs. And I promise you, it works. And you have to just, you know, continue doing it. This is the quote I leave you with, and this is what Neil Everett told me. So, you can ask 100 girls out on a date, and if you get 99 no's, that means you have a date. Think about this, guys, because there's a lot of rejection coming your way, not gonna lie. You have to have thick skin. You have to be okay with it. It's, you know, how it really digs at you sometimes. You might go through like 10 interviews. I've been through like a series of 10 interviews, and I get to that final point, and they're like, nope, we gave it to someone else. And that's crushing. That's really crushing. But if you let that make you think that you're not good enough, like, you never know the reason why you're rejected. So don't dig into that, because there's so many reasons. Like, now that I'm on the other side, I see like 2 awesome candidates, but one of them's like related to the manager, so she's gonna get the job, and like this other person who's rejected doesn't know that. They just think they're not good enough. So try to take rejection lightly and just really focus in on the positives. All right, that's it.